An effort is underway to stop the deportation of the driver responsible for the Humboldt Broncos crash. Last month, Jaskirat Singh Sidhu was ordered deported to India 6 years after his semi-truck collided with a bus carrying a junior hockey team on their way to a game in Saskatchewan. 16 people died and 13 others were injured. Sidhu pleaded guilty to dangerous driving offences and was sentenced to 8 years in prison. He was granted full parole last year. Now his Member of Parliament is trying to rally support for Sidhu to stay in Canada. George Chahal is the MP for Calgary Skyview. He joins us from Calgary. Mr. Chahal, hello.
Hi, Catherine. Thank you for having me.
What is it that convinced you to try to stop the deportation of Jaskirat Singh Sidhu?
I've been following the story like many Canadians over the last several years. And first of all, I think our whole country was impacted by this tragic accident that occurred. And as a father of 3 girls, it's just unbearable to think of what the families went through with their losses. And I know many of them are still grieving and will continue to do so. I had the opportunity recently to meet with Mr. Sidhu, as he is a constituent of mine, and hear from him. He's served his time in prison. He's been released and he's been working in our community. His wife and young son were with him when I had the opportunity to meet with him. And the impact on their life and his story also was quite moving to me. And I felt it was morally for me as his MP to lend my voice to support him. This has been a significant impact on him personally. He's remorseful and he's asking for forgiveness. But the story of his wife, who's a registered nurse, and their young child who has a significant health issue and needs neonatal care and attention. And both of them, seeing them and speaking with them, and her story of how she is now working in that same ICU unit, which provided care for their son, and her hope that the Canadian government and the Canadian people will provide forgiveness to her husband so he can continue to be with them, to be a partner for her, but a father to their son. So talking to them, it was quite moving for me. And I wanted to make sure that I could lend my support to him.
I wonder, can you just be very explicit here? What do you believe is at stake? If Mr. Sidhu is deported, what does it mean?
Well, he will be separated from his family if he is deported. His wife is a Canadian citizen and the young child is a Canadian citizen as well. My concern is the health and wellness of their young child. The mother will have to make a decision of being a single mother here in Canada to provide her child with an opportunity to grow and to have the proper care that he needs with his heart and lung condition. But also the impact on Mr. Sidhu then having to go abroad and not being able to provide for his partner. Going to another country and starting over for them will be a difficult task. And I'm hoping that Canadians can provide forgiveness to him and we can give the opportunity for him to remain here with his family to be able to support and provide for them.
What do you say to the people whose lives were changed by the crash who believe that he should be deported? They say that the deportation is the consequence of his actions, that it would be a true sign of his remorse and that it might help them heal. What would you say to those family members?
Well, the tragic accident that occurred, Mr. Sidhu took immediately, did not try to fight this legally. He accepted responsibility and had pled guilty to the charges brought against him. It was a tragic accident, and by law, as a permanent resident here in Canada, he is to be deported currently. He does have the ability to apply, which I believe his lawyer is doing so, for humanitarian compassionate grounds to stay with his wife and child. And I'm hoping that the families and Canadians will give this individual an opportunity to remain with his family and forgive him for what he's done, as he will be living with this pain for the rest of his life. And I'm hoping that his child will have an opportunity to grow up, and that he can be with his father and his mother as a family here.
You have written to your Liberal colleagues, MPs, asking them for support. What has the response been like? I imagine there's a division of opinion about this.
I've spoken to many of my caucus colleagues, and I did send out an email to them to let them know that I would be advocating for Mr. Sidhu to remain here in Canada. I've had many conversations with many of my colleagues and a lot of support from many of my colleagues as well. And so I'm embarking on trying to explain to them a little bit more of who Jaskirat is and who his wife and child are. He was here working to provide for his family and took this job so his wife could go to school and achieve her dreams of being in the healthcare system and a nurse. And many Canadians don't know his story and the impact this has had on himself, a significant impact, but also on his wife and now his young child. So he's been very remorseful and he's asked for forgiveness. And I'm asking my colleagues to do the same, and I'm asking Canadians to do the same. So I'm embarking on, I've had many people across the country reach out to me and to connect with Canadians to tell them a little bit more about who Jaskirat is and how this has impacted his life and his family's as well.
Mr. Chahal, have any of your colleagues said to you this is not the right choice? I know the Hill Times quoted an unnamed MP in your caucus who said this would open a Pandora's box, that anyone who asked for forgiveness, you'd have to start saying yes to.
I haven't had any personal conversations with any MPs regarding that. What I would say is I feel that as a Canadian and as a member of Parliament, it was my moral obligation to support my constituent. And I felt in forgiving Jaskirat, it was the right thing to do so he can be here with his family. This was a tragic accident, and he has taken full responsibility for his actions. And now he's hoping that Canadians can also forgive him and the families as well, which, this will impact those families for their entire lives. But Jaskirat knows that, and he is asking for forgiveness and an opportunity to remain here with his family, his wife and his son, so he can provide for them in the days ahead. And I'm looking forward to talking to as many of my colleagues as possible to make sure we can build consensus and support to ensure that he can remain here in Canada.
You have already said that you've been advised it's unlikely the government is going to intervene. So what is your best hope here?
Well, I mean, the legal process he's gone through, it has been unlikely that he, up to date, and as per our deportation order last week, currently he will be going through that pre-assessment risk process. There is an opportunity still with a humanitarian compassionate grounds application that I believe his lawyer is bringing forward that could be approved. And I'm hoping as we move forward that does happen, that he can stay here to be a father, to be a husband, and provide for his families and also continue his journey of healing as well.
Okay. Thank you very much for this conversation, George Chahal.
Thank you for having me.